Welcome to Haunted Hangover's 100 Obscure Horror Films I've Never Seen. I'm Louie, and I'm back with films 3 and 4. Now, I'm kind of cheating in this episode because both of these films, though they were released a year apart, are technically less than an hour in length. But since they were individually produced, I consider them two separate films, even though they're connected heavily with one another. It's basically a continuation. So, for the sake of this challenge, I'm going to treat them as two separate movies. Now, before I dive into the films, because I am going to sort of do this episode a little differently, I know I just said they're two different movies, but I'm going to kind of review them as one thing. I knew nothing about it going in. This was a blind buy. I think Vinegar Syndrome had a sale a few years ago, maybe a year or two ago. I bought this Blu-ray. I bought it for a discounted price, put it in my physical media shelf, forgot about it to the point that there was still a cellophane wrapper on it. And I said, what the heck? Let's review it here on the show as part of the 100 Obscure Horror Films I've Never Seen. And the film is Fuck the Devil and Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker. Now, I know what you're thinking. What kind of title is Fuck the Devil and Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker? Now, considering this challenge is all about films I've never heard of, films I've never seen, this is a prime example of a movie I bought, and it just sort of sat there. And I'm taking the opportunity with this series of episodes I'm doing in 2026 to finally crack open this Blu-ray and give it a watch. Now, I will admit, I knew very little about this movie going into it. I solely purchased this because of the title of both films, even though there's not much to say about both. Pretty self-explanatory. Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker. And the cover art, which has a severed rubber mask head on it. And that alone sold me. I was like, I have to give this a watch. Eventually, hence it sitting on the rack for a year or so before I finally gave it a watch for this. Now, before I get into my very loose and condensed synopsis for both of these movies, because I'm kind of reviewing these in one lump sum, just all together, mashed up together as one thing. I want to talk about shot on video films, stuff like Video Violence, Sledgehammer, I know is a really popular one. They're not for everyone. I like some of them more than others. The main thing with me in shot on video films, you know, they're all low budget. They were shot on camcorders in the 80s and 90s. I feel like when you watch one, you want to feel the passion of the filmmaker, that they wanted to tell a story. They put a lot of dedication into it. They loved what they were doing. There's been a couple of shot on video films I've watched in the past that, I mean, this is a word you wouldn't use for this type of quality of film, but sort of like a cash grab, almost like cool cover art, terrible movie. There's a bunch of classics, I would say, that fall into the shot on video category, but few and far between are any of them worth sitting for 90 minutes and watching. Now, one more thing I wanted to highlight is the actual release, the actual Blu-ray release of this film. Again, I got it on Vinegar Syndrome. It's brought to you by the fine folks at AGFA and Bleeding Skull. They put together a lot of great releases. I own several of their Blu-rays in my collection, so I always keep an eye out for stuff that might interest me and I've never heard of. This might not be the last time you see them in this 100 Obscure Horror Film Challenge. I have a sneaking suspicion there's a few more films in my collection I'll be bringing up in the future. But this release, I love the slipcase, the front cover with that severed head again in a pool of blood, the rubber mask. Flip it over, you get this great shot of the fucker flipping you off in his Evil Dead 2 shirt next to a stack of VHS tapes. Fantastic. And when you open up the Blu-ray and you look inside, you get more great imagery. The booklet on the inside has more behind-the-scenes images of the fucker holding a knife, that front cover with him with the two severed heads, and just they put a lot of detail in it. Even the original artwork for that, what I'm assuming is the VHS cover, is inside the booklet. Just a great packaging. There's 2 commentaries. There's a couple of other short films from the filmmaker. But my favorite part of this packaging, and inside the booklet specifically, because this is honestly one of my favorite aspects of the first film, is the body of a baby with its head severed. That's obviously a doll. I'll be getting to that in a second. But yes, let's get into Fuck the Devil and Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker. So Fuck the Devil was released in 1990, and Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker. Yes, I will continue to say that because I'm highly amused by the titles of these films. That one was released in 1991. So the original and its sequel, a year apart. They were both directed and starring as the titular fucker by Michael, and I know I'm going to kill and butcher this last name, which is quite fitting for these films, Michael Polklesner. Sorry, Mike. I know I'm destroying your last name there. But yeah, passion projects for this gentleman. The rest of the cast, gonna keep it 100. A bunch of unknowns. That's usually the way all these shot on video films are. You don't really see too many recognizable faces in them. Now, breaking down the plot for both of these films, Fuck the Devil and Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker, is going to be a little unorthodox because the plot, very paper thin, very surface level. Nothing pretentious about this movie, considering they're both low-budget, shot-on-video schlock. So in a nutshell, a woman pops a VHS copy of Evil Dead 2 into a VCR, and somehow, it's not explained, and that's not why you're watching this, an evil force manifests itself from the tape, possessing her boyfriend or possible husband. I'm not sure. Give or take, it's one of those. There is a relationship happening there. Once he's possessed, he's forced to don what looks like, and this is my description of the mask that the fucker wears in the film, kind of looks like Thor Johnson. If you're familiar with Thor Johnson, that's sort of what it looks like. I don't think that's what it's supposed to be. I haven't listened to the commentaries on these films yet, but I would love to know what exactly the mask is supposed to be, but it looks sort of like Thor Johnson in my mind. And he's sporting, like I mentioned before, an Evil Dead 2 shirt. From that point on, the newly christened fucker begins slaughtering anyone unlucky enough to cross his path. He is just massacring anyone and everyone in this apartment complex. Now, to keep things moving along here, Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker, sees the fucker resurrected, because he dies at the end of Fuck the Devil 1, by a VHS copy of Nightmare on Elm Street. So Freddy's power is bringing him back to life here. He turns into, very briefly, a Freddy Krueger knockoff. Since he was decapitated in the original film, that's how he's defeated, that's how he dies, he reattaches his severed head, slips on a pool of blood, falls out of a window, gets up, and continues his killing spree with anyone he encounters. Literally, we've got a Halloween and Halloween 2 situation here where both movies, the original and its sequel, continue. All one long day, night, whatever. Unlike the first film, and I do want to highlight this here for the sequel, he does leave temporarily the apartment complex and does murder someone outside. So that was sort of a breath of fresh air. Now, to give you my honest thoughts on Fuck the Devil and Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker, they're both pure, lo-fi trash, and I mean that as a compliment. You're either in it for the long run when you put this movie on, or you're giving up in the first 5 minutes. It's cheap, it's schlocky, They had no money to make these movies. So if you're expecting this like epic horror film, you're going to be highly disappointed in the first minute. Now, my 3 points of why you should watch Fuck the Devil and Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker. I know you're tired of hearing me say the titles of both of these films. Number one, some great no-budget gore that feels super homemade. I love how you can blatantly see how the trick was done, how they put together a decapitation or a stabbing. I have a little list here of some of the murders that happen in this film. I'm trying to word this in a way because I would say it's violent, but not violent because of how cartoony and cheap it looks. So here's my list of some of the stuff you'll see in Fuck the Devil and Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker. We get a baby stabbing someone in the leg. Said baby is then killed and it gets its head chopped off, which is very obviously a toy doll. Now on this baby, and I'll move on to my list of the rest of the murders and things that happen in this film. And this isn't really a spoiler because you gotta watch the film to really kind of get the context of what's happening. And again, very loose context. This baby will melt your heart. I love that they stuck someone's baby, someone's like 1-year-old child in a crib, kill it, and the baby has no idea what's going on. This baby is just smiling at the camera, stabs someone, and then is brutally slaughtered. It's hysterical and will melt your heart. Moving on to some more of the murders outside of the baby, we get a drill to a woman's stomach. We get a dude getting his chest punched through, arm, fist, through chest. We get eyeball gouging, and we get what has to be an homage to A Nightmare on Elm Street. We get a bathtub scene where the fucker emerges from the bubble bath, but instead of wearing the Freddy claw, he stomps. I think he stabs the lady and then stomps on her several times to completely make sure she's dead. Now, on the subject of Freddy, because I just mentioned one of the deaths taking place in a bathtub, the one thing I am a little disappointed is they underutilized the whole bootleg Freddy thing they could have done throughout the sequel. Because at the end of the first film, A Nightmare on Elm Street, like I said in the synopsis, the tape brings him back to life, and we see a Freddy claw. Part 2 starts with said claw entering the frame and the fucker becoming the embodiment of a Freddy Krueger character and then just dying. So it would have been awesome if the rest of the sequel just had this fake Freddy walking around slaughtering people. Instead, the fucker's brought back to life and he's the one that continues his rampage. Just a little something there that not really something I hated. I just wish they would have pulled the trigger more with the Freddy Krueger stealing gimmick. Number 2 of why you should watch Fuck the Devil and Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker. The crappy ADR and Casio keyboard theme. So throughout the film, we get these Evil Dead shots, the POV of the demon, the fucker that's possessing people, going throughout the apartment complex, from the basement, outside, through the hallways. And there's this really terrible ADR, or I'm going to try to emulate it here, where it's like, blah, 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 blah. That's the best I can do for you guys. But you hear that just as bad as what I did every time you get the POV shot of the evil spirit. You also get some really questionable ADR from the characters when they speak at times, which is kind of hilarious. Now, going back to the Casio keyboard theme, I just dug it. It just sounds like someone slamming on the keys on an old Casio keyboard, scoring this thing after the fact. Now, Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker, actually has a song that we hear throughout it called The Fucker's Back. You hear it several times throughout the second movie, which, listen, they stepped up their game with the music, and it actually has like its own song. You know, you think of like Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. You get the fuckers back in Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker. So I just appreciated the craptasticness of both the ADR and the terrible score. Loved it. And finally, number 3 of why you should watch Fuck the Devil and Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker. The DIY aspect of it, just kind of the heart, the passion that you can tell the filmmakers and the people involved. Because I'm assuming Michael had his friends and family help him make this a reality. I'm sure there was a very loose script that he wrote. He was probably a really young guy, but there's just a certain love and dedication you feel when you watch a film like this. Is it great? No. Is it perfect? No. But you can just tell that everyone involved had a blast making it, to the point that the end credits, I believe on the first one, we get some sort of bloopers of them laughing in between effects and the fucker chasing somebody or something like that. So you can just tell they had a great time making both of these films. And if you're a low budget filmmaker or someone who's dabbled with filmmaking in any capacity, you know what that means to us, to people that try to make their own movie. You fail tremendously, you fail many times, but at the end of the day, watching your own film on a screen of any size, whether it's a small TV or a movie theater, etc., just seeing that and seeing it brought to life because of your dedication and just not giving up and just doing it, Fuck the Devil and Fuck the Devil 2 are prime examples of that. And that's what I love about it. They're not boring. They're not, yeah, they're short, but it gets straight to the point. You're watching this to see a dude in a silly mask murder a bunch of random people in hilarious ways. And I think it does the job. I think you know what you're getting into when you look at this cover, and it delivers. There's no cop-outs here. When you look at this cover, severed head, blood, that's what you're getting in Fuck the Devil and Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker. So those were films 3 and 4 in my 100 obscure horror films I've never seen journey for 2026. Fuck the Devil and Fuck the Devil 2, Return of the Fucker. Yes, I needed to say that title one more time to be really annoying. If you want to watch this movie, because I know this is more of a deep cut, you might be able to find it online. Vinegar Syndrome might still have it up for sale. If not, eBay. I'm sure if you shop around, you can find it. Be sure to subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Blue Sky, Facebook, all that good stuff at Haunted Hangover. Head over to hauntedhangover.com, where you can find links to everything, including our Patreon page, where if you want to show us a little love, gain access to some bonus content, it would be greatly appreciated. Rate and review us if you're listening to this on any of the podcast apps. And remember, the best cure for a hangover is more booze. Catch you guys later.